Hey gamers, Blindy here. It's June 2024 and I recently just finished playing Disco Elysium. And the word disco is kind of used to mean if something is cool or worth your energy. So, is Disco Elysium a disco game? Stick around and I'll give you my thoughts on it. But first, let's talk about the game, a bit about the history and the company itself, a few other details like that. First things first, I will let you know that I played Disco Elysium Final Cut, which is the main version you'll be able to play, and I got it on Steam. And the main differences between the Final Cut and the original version is mostly you'll get a lot more voice acting, should be fully voice acted throughout the entire game, and there's some additional content as well. And because of the nature of the video, it's gonna be pretty boring, a lot of text-based stuff, so every once in a while I'm gonna add in a little bit of the voice acting in some of the game so that you could see exactly what the full experience is like.
There is nothing, only warm primordial blackness. Your conscious ferments in it. No larger than a single grain of malt. You don't have to do anything anymore. Ever. Never, ever.
Now this game originally released on October 15th, 2019, and it was developed by Zaum, or however you pronounce that, Z-A-U-M. It's their only game they've ever developed, and it was originally developed for Windows. This game was designed and written by an Estonian novelist by the name of Robert Kurvitz. With a group of his friends, they developed a board game initially, then they kind of transitioned into writing a novel, and then after that they decided that it was worth trying to create a video game out of this experience that they had built up. The art style was developed as kind of an oil painting art style based on one of their team members' artworks, an artist by the name of Alexander Rostov. If you're looking to get this game yourself, you'll be able to find it on Windows, Mac, PS4 and PS5, Switch, Xbox One, Xbox Series S and X, and, if you have one, the Stadia. Now, I personally played it on my Steam Deck, an original LCD version. If you're looking to buy this, the original price is $45.49 in Canadian dollars, but usually you should be able to find it 75% off, so that puts it down to $11.37. And it's a really small game as well. You'll need less than 10 gigs worth of space to be able to install this. And this is my first time playing the game, and I chose the Thinker. You have an option of 4 different character types-ish. It basically just determines how many points go to which skills you have. And if you're looking to play this on a Steam Deck, it is a verified game, and I got about an hour and a half per charge for mine. Approval ratings for Metacritic put it between the mid-80s and the high 90s, so very highly approved. And on Steam, you're looking at 93% approval rating with about 85,000 reviews. ESRB has this rated as an M. You're going to have blood, some of it, sexual themes. There's definitely quite a bit of sexual themes going on there. Strong language, which is also definitely a yes. A lot of swearing and some offensive language too. That doesn't quite fit into the swearing category. Certain characters, such as Kuno, swear every other word. Use of drugs, definitely. There's violence as well, but you won't see it. It's not that kind of a game. Basically, there has been violence, and what you're seeing are some of those repercussions, but there's not a lot of motion or action or anything like that in this game. How Long to Beat claims this game is about 23.5 hours for the main story. I took about 32 hours to play the game, and I think as far as that categorization goes, I'm a little bit beyond the main story. I claimed it as main and sides, so it was a little bit longer. And before we get into the story and some of the controls, I will give you my warning. I will do my best not to show any spoilers, Though with a game like this, there's a lot of story going on. There is some gameplay and mechanics in the cutscenes that I will be showing as well, but I will do my best not to show anything too important. So keep in mind that this is your warning.
I was sent here to meet a detective from Precinct 41. You have the insignia of the Citizens Militia on your sleeve and on your back. I suppose you could be impersonating him. You could have gotten the insignia from the black market or forged it. But for now, I'm going to set those possibilities aside. I'm not from the Inspectorate General.
Inspectorate General means Internal Affairs. What he's saying is he's not from the Rat Squad and isn't supposed to suspect such things.
As far as the story goes, literally the entire game is the story. It's almost to the point of being a visual novel in the sense that everything is dialogue based, but you will be moving around the world a bit and actually choosing objects and people to interact with. As the story begins, you wake up from a blackout. You assume it's from having drunk too much or from drugs or maybe a combination of both. You completely forget everything that happened previous to that, and you're starting in this world completely brand new. The things that you know is there has been a murder and a corpse is hanging from a tree behind the building that you're in. What you find out is that you are a detective of a nearby district that's been pulled into this area to help with figuring out what happened with this murder. So like I said, you're going to have a lot of dialogue. All the dialogue shows up on the screen in text form, but everything is voice acted as well, which is a good thing because a lot of words are either difficult words or they'll be fictional words completely made up. And that being said, I think all the voice acting has been done very well and has been really interesting to listen to. I love listening to the characters in this game. They've done a great job.
Welcome, Mr. Dubois, Mr. Kitsuragi. It's good of you two to stop by. Please, have a seat. I'm Everard Clare, head of the Debarders Union here in Martinez. I'd offer you my hand, but unfortunately my health prevents me from getting up. You understand?
He looks extremely comfortable. The tiny folding chair, on the other hand, looks like a torture device.
You go ahead, detective.
Now, as far as controlling in this game, the first thing that I could think about as far as what relates best to me is, well, I might be talking to the wrong crowd, but if you're old enough, you're going to think along the same lines as me. I feel like this is kind of like King's Quest or one of those point-and-click adventures from back in the early 90s. Basically, it's a lot of walking around the world. There are objects within the world that you can interact with, and you'll be interacting with people as well. And that's really about it. There is no action, there is no combat, and there's nothing really more than interacting with objects and people and having that dialogue box pop up. I found this game a little bit confusing to start. So you have an isometric overhead kind of role-playing game vibe to this game. I think the role-playing is really just kind of a finger quotes type of term. In essence, there are some upgradable elements that can help you with certain aspects of the game, but it really isn't the focus of this game at all. All the focus is on trying to gather up as much information from the various dialogues that you get from either the people or the objects that you interact with. And beyond that, role-playing is a very minor part of this. So what you'll see on the screen are little dots, kind of markers, and what you'll do is to be able to interact with them, you're going to use your right stick. It took me a little while to figure this out, but you use your right stick to kind of move from marker to marker, and once it's highlighted, it's going to show up with A for the Steam Deck, or whichever button is your interaction button, and it will change to that button, so it will let you know that you're able to interact with that item. And if you don't want to, you just use your stick to move to something else. Once you get that figured out, That's basically the entire method of interacting with anything in this world. You're going to walk around, you're going to use that right stick to select objects that you want to interact with, and then you interact with them. There are other methods to choose which object you want to interact with, but that's the one that I generally used. Now, I said this is a role-playing game, and you do have a health and a morale system that kind of determines your overall health, but really it seems to be fairly random to figure out exactly how you're going to get damaged at all. Like I said, everything is dialogue based, so anytime that you take any damage to your health or your morale, it's from having a conversation, and you won't necessarily know when you'll have something that will injure you. Again, finger quotes for that. So that being said, there are items that you could use to heal yourself up, so have a few on hand and use them as necessary, but you won't use them all that often. So the conversations are the main basis of the game. You're basically going to walk up to somebody, you're going to talk to them, and you're going to try to gather as much information from talking to them as possible. And as you talk to various people, previous people that you talk to will have more options pop up, and they'll provide more information given what you gain from other conversations that you've had.
I'm not. Unless you've been shitting us all this time. You've been here for 3 days, on official police business, no less. Couldn't say. In truth, so far, mostly drinking.
You have no doubt about the drinking, but do you strike yourself as a tight-lipped drunk? She must have heard something.
So, because there's a lot of talking in this game, and there's so much talking in this game, some of these conversations can take a super long time. Literally, some of the conversations I had were over an hour just talking to one person. And it could be a bit frustrating if you're trying to save or shut down the game or whatever the case is. At the very least, you are able to exit the dialogue for the most part, and once you're out of the conversation, you're able to save and leave the game. You'll just be missing on some of those points. You'll have to go back in to talk to that person and figure out those extra details later on. Now, that all being said, it's not all just you talking to the person and the person talking back to you. A lot of it is your psyche, and these are where the role-playing elements come in. You have those points assigned to various parts of your psyche, and given the points that they're assigned, they may chime in and actually talk during the conversation as well. Basically, it'll be things like your perception is saying something, or some of the others that will want to add a little bit something to the conversation, which you may not say outwardly as your person, but internally you're having a conversation in your head. And because the dialogue box is the main way to interact with anything, you're also going to have these conversations with the objects that you pick up and examine. So basically, it's like you're having a conversation with the object, and your psyche is doing a lot of the conversational work because you don't have a person to actually talk to. So your mind is doing all the conversational work. And when you're talking to people, occasionally you'll come up across a skill check. It's a chance for you to essentially roll the dice to determine what kind of outcome we'll have. Sometimes they're super important, sometimes they're not important at all. You may not really know. So basically, you'll roll some dice, kind of, like they'll show up, but it's really unimportant. And it'll be modified by the level of your skill. And from there, you'll either pass it or you'll fail it, and things will be determined from there. Later on in the game, these will become a little bit more important to try to get those to pass. You may be able to retry certain ones. There'll be white check marks, and if you're not able to retry them, there will be red. But like I said, later on in the game, they'll be a bit more significant, but you'll have a bit more flexibility as far as assigning your points to be able to get a successful check done. So interestingly enough, I would say that this game is an open world. I guess technically it is. You can wander almost wherever you want to. You can talk to whoever and just kind of take things at your own pace. But this world is small. It is literally just like a small section of this town that you visit. So technically, yes, I would say it's an open world. Something kind of curious if you care about that kind of gameplay. And initially I had thought that this was a choices matter game, but as I think about it, it's not quite that case. Some choices do matter as far as how you respond to certain questions and how that conversation's gonna go. But realistically, when you look at the entire game, it's all gonna lead toward the same place. It's gonna get you in the same direction. So some choices may matter a little bit, but overall, not significantly. And in your pause menu, you have a map, and this is an extremely useless item, like surprisingly useless. One of the best benefits of it is that you can fast travel to 3 different spots on the island, which will come in handy for sure. But beyond that, there's not a lot of clarity in the map design. It's really kind of tricky to figure out where you are, where you're going, where any locations are. You can't zoom in. There are no labels or anything like that. And to show you that they don't really prioritize it much at all either, they placed it on a secondary tab of one of the 5 screens on the pause menu. So it's not a significant thing for them either. And there are definitely moments of silliness in this game. Most of it is taken seriously, but you have some moments where it just kind of makes you chuckle. One is when your partner Kim says that you need to get your shit together, and that opens access for you to learn about the volumetric shit compressor. And another one is something I'll show here on the screen. You get to talk to these old soldiers from a war way back when, and they're playing a game involving various balls that throw out the ground. And you ask if you can play with them, and they ask you, do you know how to play this game? So you could choose to say yes, which means that you'll end up walking over to those balls, you'll pick one up, and you'll spin around a few times and you'll shot put it into the water. And those guys get pissed off for you throwing the ball. It made me chuckle. It's a stupid little thing, but it's nice that they added something like that into the game.
Merde! Bordel de merde!
A whorehouse of shit. It wasn't whorehouse of shit. The shot was at least 23 meters, probably 24, and then some. Nothing to be embarrassed about.
What the hell is your problem?
So overall, I think visually this game is really cool. You can see it on the screen. Like I said, it's based on oil paintings and that kind of style. So it's really visually distinct, which is really cool. I think that the colors stand out pretty well. You're able to see everything quite clearly. I think they've done a really good job overall. And your characters' faces in the corners can be a bit creepy as well. That's great. I think my biggest problems with the game is, one, it was a bit slow. Like I said, a lot of conversation. And if you're not completely tuned in, then it's really easy to tune out. And the pause menu is kind of difficult as well. It felt like it was a bit of a mess, just kind of thrown together. Not a real good organized system, and it could be a little confusing to try to figure out your way through that. And the music I thought was quite good, but nothing was really memorable except for the one song, which we'll play here in a second. It was the hypnotic music of the ravers in the tent. It's kind of an EDM style music, but it's super repetitive, so it's really cool for a short period of time, but I wouldn't play it on loop because it loops itself.
Together with a Settle Burger, who's out there right now doing some seriously progressive sonic experimentation, we like to think of ourselves as music venue organisers. We have many in the pipeline, officer.
That means they haven't set up a single one yet.
You see, we've been all over Jamrock North, prospecting for real estate to establish a new venue in.
Artists are for talent.
Yeah, thank you, Egghead. And while there is no shortage of raw, unfettered talent spinning tapes in Jamrock, we've had rotten luck with the real estate part.
Place is a shithole.
I apologise for my friend Noid's potty mouth. I realise this is not how you speak to a police officer. He has authority issues.
So then I guess we ask if I would recommend this game. And, well, the people that would love this game are going to love this game. But this game is not for everyone. It's really slow, it is methodical, and realistically, there's a whole lot of jibber-jabber going on. So if you're the type of person that tunes out during long-winded stories, this is going to feel like a slog. But if you enjoy a casual experience with well thought out details and an elaborate plot, you're probably going to love this one. And I think that's kind of the trick with these review scores. They review really high, but I think that the people that review those games really high are the people that want to play a game like this. And the people that would review it really low don't play the games like this. So you're only going to get the high scores, and you're not going to get a huge mix of people that really don't care. So that said, I don't think there's a whole lot of room in between loving and disliking this game. So if what you've seen so far is something that you are interested in, I think you're going to love it. But if what you've seen so far is not at all interesting, you're not going to like this game at all. It is just too slow. There's no action. It is all story. So I think generally this game was a good game, and I could see the genius in it, but I also felt that it ran about 5 to 10 hours too long. It just kept going. Every time that I thought that the game was just about to end, it felt like there was another couple hours to keep going, and it was almost frustrating at a point. So then the question would be, would I ever play it again? And I want to say probably not. Because it's so story-based, I don't think that changing the gameplay style is going to change a whole lot. Essentially, all you're going to be doing by replaying it is just listening to new dialogue that the different options would provide you. But that being said, you're not even going to change a whole lot of dialogue. A lot of it will be repeated. But I do like the voice acting. I think pretty much all of it is great. Just absolutely fantastic voice acting. But it's not enough to pull me in to play this game again.
Oh, this is about him. A real looker, that one.
You sure took your time, huh? Waited for him to get real ripe and pretty for you.
Oh, he was a real pretty boy. Hanging up there, letting out that pretty boy smell.
I can't for the life of me understand why you did it. I mean, I would have just left him up there. You must really like cleaning up other people's shit.
You might want to start asking your questions now. It's not going to get better than this.
So, my overall score is going to be a 9 out of 14. This puts it at about 64%. So, not a great score. I think a lot of people will love it and put it at a higher score. It just wasn't for me. Given the amount of hours that I had to put into this just for the story, I don't know, I thought it was a bit much. So at this time, I normally put in a little clip of the boss fight, but there's no combat in this game. There are no bosses in this game. So this is the final confrontation, I guess. And I guess this is the closest thing we could do. So take a look at that. Alright, I covered a lot, but I didn't cover everything. So let me know, was I fair? Was I wrong? Let me know in the comments. And before we go, I'd like to thank all of my patrons on Patreon. Just kidding, I still don't have a Patreon page, but I do have a Discord channel. So, if you want to find out what I'm playing and what games I'm going to be reviewing soon, come join me and ask me. I will let you know. And before you go, I'd like to thank you for joining me today. Without you, I'm just some weirdo talking into a microphone. So thank you for joining me today. If you liked the video, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you loved the video, it'd be awesome if you subscribe to my channel. That would mean a whole lot to me. And a new thing I want to say is that I previously have had about 1 subscriber per video. So I'm going to put a goal out there to say that with this video, I'd love to have 10 subscribers total. Alright, again, thank you very much for joining me today, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care.